Hi, everybody. Today's Wednesday, March 11th, 2026, and our dear friend or brother, Scott Ritter, is here with us. Welcome back, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
Let me start, Scott, with what today is the 12th days of war between the United States and Israel on one side and Iran on the other side. But something happened in the first day of attack against Iran that still Donald Trump says he doesn't know if it was the United States or someone else. Pete Hegseth says he's assessing that, but something strange came out of from the Trump administration. Or Donald Trump himself said that many people have these Tomahawk missiles. They may use them. He referring to Iranian, army to use those Tomahawk missiles against the primary school in Iran. And here is what Michael Maloof, the ex-Pentagon analyst, said on RT Russia Today about what has happened.
That it came from the United States. As you point out, just those four countries outside the United States possess Tomahawks. It's my understanding that it was that it was from U.S. Ships, and that it was a double tap, or what we would, or at least two. One came down, hit the school. The children, as I understand it, were trying to be rushed into the surviving students into another part that was not bombed, and then the second one came down and killed the remaining children and staff. So this is a very terrible thing, and Trump is just in denial, and he needs to fess up to it.
Yeah, he's. What is your understanding of what has happened, and why did it happen? Because still, look at what's going on in Iran. The first day, what has happened in the first day is so much important, so much influential. Until many people are talking about it. It was so much. It was a tragedy when you look at it.
Well, it's a tragedy. It's also a war crime. First of all, we need to start off by saying, there's been no publicly available investigation carried out by the United States, so we're operating in a vacuum. I respect Mr. Maloof, and I agree with him, but we don't know what ship it was fired from. We don't know which variant of the Tomahawk it was, but again, forensically, we can reconstruct a lot of this stuff. The Iranians have provided some information, and some of that information proves that it was a Tomahawk. Remember, it's the imagery from Iran that shows that it was a Tomahawk on the reattack. But we do need to point out that any in-depth conversation, which is, I'm sure, what you want, is going to require informed speculation. Connecting the dots. Now, the good news is, Nima, you actually have a guy who's been decorated twice by the director of the CIA for connecting the dots, decorated by General Schwarzkopf for connecting the dots. I get a lot of commendations for connecting the dots. I'm pretty good at it. So I'm willing to go through this exercise with you, but I just want people to understand that until we get the official reports, till we have hard data, there's just a lot of speculation involved. Okay, we know the United States incorporated a large number of Tomahawk cruise missiles on the first day of the strike. The exact number, again, hasn't been released by the Pentagon to the best of my knowledge, nor has the sources of the ships where they came from. But basically, we know the U.S. Navy uses what's known as the Block 4, the fourth generation of the Tomahawk. There's a Block 5 under development, may actually been deployed in a number of cases, but the Block 4 is the workhorse of the Tomahawk fleet. And we can talk about the Tomahawk comfortably because we have the photograph, and the president has sort of suggested that a Tomahawk was involved. He just says it came from Great Britain, the Netherlands, Japan, some of the other nations that are possessing these weapons, not the United States, but it came from the United States. There's just literally no doubt about that. What the Tomahawk Block 4 is, let's say it's launched from a destroyer, an Aegis destroyer, Arleigh Burke class, or some other class. It's launched from a control room, and so the each missile can be programmed, and actually the Block 4 can actually be programmed up to 15 different missiles, and you can select it. And the other interesting thing is you can redirect it, as needed. So let's say you're firing and you need to be redirected to another target for priority. You can, there's a communications link, and the control room can actually redirect them and all that. But basically, they are operating off of a master plan. The initial strike is a very carefully planned thing, and basically it's time on target. You don't want to start it prematurely and give advance, so everything flows into strike just about the same time. So you're going to launch, a ship's here, a ship's there. This ship that's further away is going to fire first, and then you'll fire. And the idea is that you're going to come in, and hit your target at the same time as aircraft are flying, releasing their standoff munitions. So it's all a carefully choreographed thing, and the targets are picked for maximum effect of the shock and awe of the goals and objectives. If you want to suppress this, that, and the other thing. So, all this data has to be factored. Why can I speak about this? Gosh, I helped plan the strategic air campaign against Iraq, and I know intimately what went into the first night strike against Iraq in Operation Desert Storm. And, past practice repeat themselves, so we can imagine that even though there's been technological updates, the same concepts apply to this one. So basically, a target deck was picked, and then each target was selected. You assign a weapon to each target based upon the damage you want, weapons availability, etc. Some will be struck by aircraft, some will be struck by cruise missiles. And so you're doing that. Now, what goes into the target deck? This is where your campaign priorities come into play. We know a couple of things. We know that regime change was definitely one of the priorities. We also know that suppression of Iranian ballistic missile capability or cruise missile capability is another priority. And so, I'm getting phone calls nonstop. I'm doing my best to keep calm. I just blew up on my last interview and lost my temper. So I'm trying to keep it calm here. My wife has told me to stop doing interviews because I'm becoming too emotionally involved. But, when we're talking about the murder of 176 kids, how can you not become emotionally involved, especially when it's your country that committed mass murder? But anyways, we come back to the targeting. So now we have target types. So normally what happens is you have targeteers, people like me who sit behind a desk, and they said, find, go through the list. You have this national target base. Everything in the world is targeted by the United States. We've taken photographs of everything, and every photograph we take, every place, whether it's a bridge in Tajikistan or a warehouse in Vladivostok, it's in the database, and it's got a target number attached to it. And so I can sit there, at least I used to be able to. You used to have to do it by microfiche. I mean, you put the old microfiche down there and do it manually and handwrite the notes and then print it up and put it together. And, then we got computers, and it was all computerized. You could type in search words and you could get all that stuff. But it's hard work because now you have to pull up that stuff. Then a lot of times they haven't digitized everything. So even if you get the master list, you have to go into the microfiche and pull up the fiche and the fiche reader and go blind reading the microfiche or print it out and then type up your own reports. I did this in 1985 when we went through the target deck for Iran, by the way, the invasion of Bandar Abbas. I went through the whole database of targets, updated them, looked at ones, is that bridge still there? Bridge was built in 1956. Well, gosh, it's 1985. Do you think the bridge is still there? Has it been replaced? If it's replaced, what is the construction type of the bridge? Do we have to change the targeting parameters? All this stuff. Have the roads changed? I mean, this bridge might have been strategic in 56, but maybe a bigger road has been built and it's no longer strategic. We can look. You had to scrub the whole thing. That's what I did. And then, you do the same thing. But the point is, you have to confirm each target, what it is. You have to confirm what it's built out of, because that plays a role in what's going to blow it up. And then you have to also scrub and say, in 1956, when this bridge was built, you had a village over here, but that village could have expanded. We noticed there was an expansion rate in 56. Maybe that village has actually grown around the bridge, and maybe there's a mosque right next to the bridge now. We might want to look at imagery and evaluate it. So you have to do this thing. You have to go in and update it. You got to make sure that if we're blowing something up, we're not blowing. There's a reason why we're blowing it up, and that we're not inadvertently striking a school, a mosque, a hospital, anything of that nature. It's the law of war. The law of war requires this. the 1949 Geneva Conventions, then the additional protocol to those, 1977, been adapted into the Department of Defense Law of War Manual. So I'm not making this up, ladies and gentlemen. When you take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, this is what you're talking about here. This is what you're talking about, the law of war. You're talking about the rule of law. And military professionals take this stuff very seriously because it's our job. We're not here to do Pete Hegseth murder. We're here to uphold and defend the Constitution. And if our commander-in-chief gives us instructions to go to war, we have to ensure that the war we wage, in addition to be lethal and effective and victorious, is legal and moral and just, as much as the extent that any war could ever be, moral and just. You're murdering people. But, law of war is a funny thing because it basically creates a legal framework to commit murder in. But that's what the law says. So this is what we do. This is what we did. And so somebody's supposed to do that now for Iran. But as I said, the database that I'm working off of for the operation plan to go into Bandar Abbas was a war plan that's been around for a while. And it had an established target deck that I needed to scrub, remove some targets, add new targets, things of that nature. But you had a target deck. This war plan that's being executed against Iran is completely different. This is a strategic air campaign that was ginned up literally in January, because we know that the war plan for January 17th, when Donald Trump was saying, help is on the way, there was a war plan, but that was a regime change war plan. And it was stopped because the Pentagon went, what about the missiles? If we bomb the regime and they start launching missiles, we don't have enough defense capability here. And we need to suppress this. We can't let them just fire missiles at will. So that's why they stopped the action in January. That's why we flowed in all this air defense, all the THAADs, the Patriots. We built it up, and then under that umbrella of perceived protection, we then to flow in the military power. And that military power dictated the plan. We had ships coming in, we had planes coming in, and now they said, these are the resources we have, let's give them targets. And they started making the targets up because they weren't ready to do that national suppression thing. Now they're making the targets. So this is a war plan that was ginned up very quickly. That's okay, because that's what intelligence officers do. That's the job we do. That's why we're fat and we eat donuts. And we have glasses. We can sit behind a desk and we look at shit and we make decisions. Some of us are in the field and get a little lean and mean, but most part, intelligence officers, we don't live the sexy life. This isn't James Bond. It meant sitting behind a desk and evaluating data, rolling through the data. But we don't do that anymore. You see, the job I used to do, they've streamlined it. And so what happened is we use artificial intelligence to do targeting. And I hate the term artificial intelligence because there's nothing intelligent about it. It's basically parameter driven. You say, go through that database. Remember that database I was telling you about? All the things. Everything is targeted. It's all there. And they have dimensions and all that. So now you have somebody say, gosh, we're supposed to be bombing facilities that the Revolutionary Guard Command could be using to hide missiles, missile storage facilities, et cetera. So you have the naval facility in Manab, has warehouses in it, has buildings in it. And so they sit there and they say, okay, here's the dimension of structure we're looking for, this by this. Generate a target list of all structures that meet that criteria. And so the artificial intelligence does that. Now, that's okay. I mean, that's a good way to jumpstart it. If you want to do that, that's a good. I still would want to double check it because, I trust the human brain, and I'm the kind of guy that believes that there's always the gem that didn't get picked up. The most important target isn't the obvious target. And if I spend enough time on the light table looking at a photograph, I'm going to go, that's the real target. AI can't give you that. This brain can, because I'm thinking, I'm doing it. But so I'd still want to scrub it, but it's a good way to start. You start with this. And so the Manab base once used to be a big base, the whole base. And so the database that in there, AI, instead of discriminating, which is, again, the human brain would go, well, gosh, you're pulling me a data set that's from 2005. And at that time, Manab was one giant Revolutionary Guard naval base. But we know in 2013, they carved out this section. They carved it out. And I'll just give you another thing. We run a program, or we used to run a program. I don't know if we run it anymore. But, you know, every Iranian that leaves Iran and goes to Dubai and does the smuggling thing gets debriefed by the CIA. We can do it directly or we can do it indirectly. But we have a CIA presence there and in Abu Dhabi and all the places. And we talk to everybody. What happens to that kid, the Basij, that joins the Revolutionary Guard Command? He gets stationed in Manab, does his 2-year assignment, gets out, and then he gets a job on a fishing boat, a dhow, and he starts moving stuff back and forth. And now he comes in, and we caught him buying some weed because, you know, Iranians are human. So he's in there smoking weed, and the locals got him. So we sit down, and we say, hey, what we want from you, who were you? I was this. I used to be a private in the RD. So you were in Manab? Yeah. Here's a map. Tell us about Manab. And he'll sit there and point it all out. We'll say, okay, well, what you do is when you go back, just talk to people and just try and get an update. Go to your friends that are still there and then just come back and we'll report. And that they do that. The reason why I bring this up is those target packages that I spoke of continually are updated with human intelligence or imagery. We have imagery analysts who will repeatedly go over and go, Manab expanded this, did that. And then that imagery assessment goes to the human guys who sit there and talk to the guy. Hey, we understand there's a new place built in Manab. Here, what's there? And we do this. This is the way you develop target packages. Now, I don't know if we still do it because it's a lot of work. And a lot of people, I know there's a lot of people just thought it was a scut work because we're never going to go to war against Iran. So why are we wasting so much time building up target information about Manab? But we used to do that. That used to be a thing. But the point is, there's a lot of data there. But unless AI is programmed into that, maybe the AI thing hasn't been given access because human intelligence, is something that we don't share with everybody. It gets compartmented. And some sensitive imagery intelligence, some sensitive SIGINT intelligence, it gets compartmented. So if I'm doing a broad brush, basic top secret, which top secret for a strike package means it's top secret because we're going to strike, but we're only talking secret information. No SCI, no special information, just a basic scrub of secret information. That's basic imagery analysis, old school stuff, nothing sexy. So it's going to generate the oldest map possible. It doesn't have all the human intelligence updates. It doesn't have the SIGINT updates that talk about the frequencies that are operating there, give you an order of battle. We intercepted this frequency. These are the units attached. That's here. Boom, boom. This one moved here. This one moved there. This is an empty building now. This has been converted to a hospital, and this has been converted to a school. Oh, we don't have that because that's sensitive. You're just doing a broad-based intelligence sweep of the data. So now you generate, let's say, Manab. And the evidence suggests that there were 4 targets picked in Manab of interest. And that means that 4 buildings of a specific size deemed to be usable by the Iranians to hide cruise missiles, drones, or whatever are there. So now we're going to strike these 4 buildings. We used to have something in 2023. Joe Biden's administration signed off on a directive to create something called the Civilian Harm and Mitigation Resources team. And their job was to work with commands as they develop courses of action, as they develop target lists. Their job was to go through the targets and evaluate each target to make sure that that was what it was, that it wasn't next to a school, that it wasn't a school, that it wasn't a mosque. It was, and that's what their job was. Now, this is it's constricting. I can understand if you're a warrior who wants to bomb and suddenly you have a geek like Scott Ritter coming in going, hey, mosque across the road, what munition you dropping on that? 2,000-pound bomb ain't going to cut it. You drop a 2,000-pound bomb, you're going to get collateral damage, and we're prohibited by law from doing anything to that mosque. Well, they don't like to hear that. That's constricting. That's restricting the ability of the military to be lethal. No, it's called the rule of law, the Constitution. It's sort of a thing, if you believe in it. Well, Pete Hegseth comes rolling in. Now he's Secretary of War. And he says, I'm doing away with all that. Doing away with it. He canceled that directive. There is no more civilian harm mitigation team. There is no more scrutiny of targets. We are rules free. And he has said it. No rules of engagement, no constraining rules of engagement. We are maximum lethality, maximum lethality. So now the one team that could have come in and gone 2 warehouses, okay. That third one you want to strike, that's a hospital, guys. We don't bomb hospitals. Oh, and this thing up here, it's a school. We've known that since 2016. It's a secondary school for girls. We got a lot of reporting here. We had a guy come across in a Dow and tell us that they had carved that off, and his daughter actually goes to that school, and he named the teachers and everything. We got this all in a report. That team was done away with. Now we just have 4 targets. So now we come to the opening day of the war, and we got an Arleigh class destroyer up there, and it's participating in it. So it's given its assignment, and so you can have that. It's capable of cycling off a number of rounds, so it can do multiple tasks. But there's a team in there that's been given the task of monitoring the attack on Manab, and they're going to fire the munitions necessary. So you have 4 targets. You need 4 points of impact. But here's the problem. Now, this is a classified number, so I'm just going to make one up because I'm not allowed to talk about it. We know that the Tomahawk doesn't work a certain percentage of time. We knew that since the Gulf War. They've declassified a lot of data about how we fought that war. What they won't tell you is what the failure rate of the Tomahawk was, because they don't want anybody to know that. But we have a rough idea because we fired 60 some odd Tomahawks against Syria. Remember that, 2017, Donald Trump? And we know that I think 21 of them didn't work. That's about a 1/3 non-functioning rate. Now, I'm not saying that's related to the Gulf War. I'm not allowed to say that. I'm just saying that in Syria, it was about a 1 out of 3 didn't work. That's a lot. But to give you an idea of what the military thinks, again, I'm just using data here, guys. There's 4 targets. They fired 5 missiles. Why would you fire 5 missiles? Because 1 out of 4 is anticipated not to work. That's about a 25% failure rate. I'm not saying that's a number. I'm just saying that appears to be what's happening here. So you cycle off 4 cruise missiles to go to the target. Each one has a point. The 5th one, it's a block 4, has the ability to loiter over the site and take imagery and send that imagery back to the ship so they can monitor battle damage assessment. Because you want to hit all these targets, take them out, and you anticipate the potential of 1 out of 4 failing. So you have the 5th back up there to look. If you get a fail, it can reattack. And so the first 4 come in, bam, bam, hit the 2 warehouses, punch holes in them. Nothing. No secondary explosion, nothing. It's empty because, gosh, Manab hasn't been functioning for a while. We knew that because we had the defector reports and everything, but the computer didn't know that because it's AI, and we didn't have a civilian mitigation team that would have confirmed it. I mean, if I was on that team, I went, I don't think there's anything in there, but there could be. It's a military target. So these are good targets. Hit them. The first 2 targets are good targets. You're allowed to hit those. No problem. 3rd one, it's a hospital. We punched a hole in the hospital, and there's smoke coming out. So I'd say, well, we hit it. There's smoke. Good secondary effects. Mission accomplished. Now, if I had been on the mitigation team, I would have said, you guys just committed a war crime because you struck a hospital. Keep that in mind. We committed a war crime because we struck a hospital. But that's okay. Forget that. Now we come to the other one. It hits it. We get a partial collapse. But now the missile's flying around. It's seeing 2 holes with no smoke. It's seeing a 3rd hole with smoke. And it's looking at the 4th target. And what does it see? Movement on the ground. It sees a lot of movement on the ground. There's people inside moving to a building. There's people outside coming to that building. And the guys on the ship, they're sitting there. Their job is to destroy. And so they're like, okay, destroyed. Movement, people coming in. We haven't completely neutralized this target. Reattack. So that cruise missile goes up, boom, hits the target, the reattack. Now, the interesting thing about the Block 4 is the warhead that's probably used on there is I forget the exact name, but it's a combined effects munition. It's designed basically to punch through concrete and then blow up inside and destroy what's inside. So you're not going to get the full 1,000-pound bomb because people are like, that's not the size of 1,000, because it's not a 1,000 pound. It's a lesser. It's a combined effects munition. The other thing about the Block 4, though, is that when they were testing it, they realized that there's a lot of unexploded fuel here. That's potential, because again, this is a munition. So they designed it so that you could convert the unexpended fuel into a fuel air explosive, and you can get this additional thermal effect on the target. So this went down, punched through the hole of the building where the people were going in. You get the combined effects blast, so fragmentation blast, explosive blast. But on top of that, you get a little thermobaric action going in, burning everything up inside. And of course, they hit, and that's it. We got 4 out of 4. Good job. The problem is that last target was a school, and the first cruise missile that hit collapsed some of the structures affiliated with the functioning of the school. The surviving teachers and students, and many of them did survive. There were casualties in the initial strike, but many of them survived, were being ushered into the last remaining safe place. It's like what happens if you have a school shooting. Take the kids to the cafeteria, take the kids to the library, take the kids to the safe place, the place where they're going to be safe. If there's a tornado, take them to the gymnasium. Well, the safest place in that structure was the prayer hall. Take the kids to the prayer hall. And so they're evacuating them. Kids are coming in, the teacher bringing them, trying to calm them down. They're also calling the parents and saying, hey, something's happened here. You need to come and get your children. So parents start to arrive. So this is the movement that the cruise missile is seeing, that the guys on the ship are seeing. They're seeing teachers taking children into the prayer hall. They're seeing first responders coming in, and they're seeing parents start to arrive to collect their children. But they ordered the reattack anyways. If you read the accounts of there's accounts that coming out of Iran that talk about this. You have a parent that talks about, I could only recognize my child because of her backpack, because what was left of my child was nothing, ashes, burned, incinerated. That's the thermobaric effect. Only could recognize the child because of the backpack. And other parents have spoken about the same thing, the horror that they confronted there with their dead children. It's one thing to pull a dead body out of a rubble. It's another thing not to have anything left because of what happened. 176, I think the number may have gone up even higher than that now, 180 or so. Innocent children between the ages of 6 and 12 murdered. And that's what it was. It was a deliberate murder. This wasn't an accident. You don't have accidents in war. I'm just trying to tell you, especially when the way you mitigate against accidents is to have procedures in place, like creating a civilian harm mitigation team that reviews targets to make sure the targets comply with the law of war, which is not something that is, optional. The law of war is mandatory. If you disobey the law of war, we actually have a law on the books in the United States about, War Crimes Act. You know what the penalty for deliberately committing a war crime is? Death. Death. So if you're in the U.S. military and you deliberately commit a war crime, you can be sentenced to death. And what happened in Manab is a war crime because there were so many failures. We're supposed to be military professionals. We know what the laws are. We're not allowed to bomb schools. We're not allowed to bomb hospitals. We're not allowed to bomb mosques. Sort of black and white. And so we have a duty and responsibility under international law to ensure that we do the necessary homework to make sure that it's called distinction. We have to distinguish between military targets and civilian targets. It's a duty before you bomb, especially in a pre-planned environment where you have the time. It's another thing if you're under fire. I mean, there's a lot more latitude. If I'm under fire and I'm taking fire and my Marines are going down, I'm returning fire, I don't have time to sit there and do a full target analysis. I'm just going to eliminate the threat to my Marines. So there's a lot of latitude. They go, Scott, you fired into a school. Well, God damn it, there was a machine gun firing at me from that school. Therefore, it lost its protected status. You get to sort of shortcut the checks and balances thing. But when you're doing a pre-planned attack, where there is no imminent threat, you get to pick the time and the date you want. And that's what happened on day one. We picked the time and date. We decided to attack that place at this time, that date, with this munition. So if you're going to do that, then you must obey the law of war. You must. So anytime you can put a munition on a target, you have a legal responsibility to make sure that target is a military target. And that the other reason that's important is there's another thing called proportionality. You have to make sure that the munition you're using is proportional to what you expect to do from that. So, for instance, we had that building there. We wouldn't be allowed to drop a nuclear bomb on that building because we're just trying to destroy cruise missiles that might be inside. That's disproportional use of force. We probably even couldn't drop a MOAB on it. don't want to drop a 2,000-pound bomb on it. Again, proportionality. So you're going to come in with a cruise missile with a combined effects munition designed to punch a hole in the roof and destroy what's inside. That is proportional to the threat. The law of war. They obeyed that, but they didn't do the. My dogs are upset about the use of cruise missiles against children too, but they didn't do the requirement to distinguish. They went because Pete Hegseth said that's too constraining. Lethal warriors don't distinguish. We kill. And I mean, literally, he's saying this. We kill. We're maximum lethality. So he did away with, and it's not just the civilian harm mitigation team. That's an extra layer that was put in because after the global war on terror, the United States found that even though the law requires us to distinguish, that many times military planners just were skipping through that. And so this was an additional procedure in place to make sure that we adhered to the law of war. And so now there's a directive that says you have to do this and resources provided. But Hegseth got rid of that. So that's a premeditated act to remove the constraints, to remove the procedures that would protect against a crime. And this is a horrific war crime carried out by a Secretary of Defense. I know people want to call him Secretary of War, but he's not Secretary of Defense. That's the legal term. Who committed a war crime. And this has intent. We know he intended to be maximum lethal because he said so. And he facilitated the crime by eliminating all the checks and balances that could have prevented this. And he also failed in the way he did targeting. If you're going to subcontract out to a artificial intelligence civilian platform, which we did, there must be supervision. There has to be some sort of supervision. You can't just receive a package and go, we're good. No. You have to do the due diligence. You have to have somebody go through and make sure that everything they say in there is good. They didn't do that. Pete Hegseth did that. He streamlined murder. And then the U.S. military executed the murder. And so every one of those children was murdered by the United States Navy on that. And everybody in that kill chain should be held accountable because people say, well, why would the sailors be doing? Because you have a moral duty under the law of war before you apply munition to target to make sure that the law of war has been applied. If you're going to bomb a target, you have a right to say, has this been properly vetted? You've handed me a completed thing, but has this been properly vetted? And if you're also an admiral general and you know that the directive has been canceled, you have a duty and responsibility to say, I'm not bombing this target until we do our own civilian harm mitigation. I know you've canceled that directive, but that doesn't supersede the law of war manual. The law of war manual requires me to review this target. They didn't. They skipped over that. So it's not just Hegseth, but it's everybody in the kill chain below that is culpable in the murder of these children. There are no innocents here. Everywhere, somebody that, again, you're that chief petty officer sitting in the Aegis destroyer, looking at the imagery coming in from the cruise missile overhead, and you see people moving in, and the officer on duty says, "Reattack." You go, "No, sir, I refuse to obey that order." Sir, we don't know who those people are. We don't know what they are. These could be first responders coming in. We have no positive identification of these people, and therefore we have no legal authority to strike this target. We cannot strike the target. That's the legal responsibility. That's what a moral warrior would do. And the officer, if he was also moral and taking a note to the Constitution, you're absolutely right. No reattack. What are the 15 targets in there? Boom. Okay, send this cruise missile off to target Alpha 01001. And complete the mission there. And then you go expend that munition on a legitimate lawful target. But if you're sitting there looking at bodies coming in, you have to stop and say, we need to know who those people are. We can make no assumptions here. We have to know who they are before we move on. This has changed. We went from destroying a building to killing people. Okay, we put a hole in a building, but now we have people moving around in there. Who are they? What are they? What are they doing? And we have to confirm that this is a valid military target, put that on target. And the people in the destroyer, with all due respect to them, I wish I could court-martial you. I'd love to have you on the stand because you're going to jail for the rest of your life. There is no defense for what you did. You are war criminals. And this is why I tell everybody in the U.S. military right now, you better start looking in the mirror because one day you're going to be my age. Right now you're in your 20s and your 30s and you're strong and you're virile and you're like, I'm a warrior and I'm tough. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt, guys. I know what I'm talking about here. One day you're going to be my age. You're going to look in the mirror. And you're going to be reflecting back on what you did in your life. And every single one of you guys are responsible for the deaths of those 180 plus children. They're on you. You murdered them. And now you got to look in the mirror and say, I'm a murderer, because you are. It's going to haunt you for the rest of your life. You did nothing to stop it. Nothing. I do that. I look in the mirror and I wonder about the over 400 people that I'm responsible for killing in Amaria, because I was part of that kill chain, Amaria bomb shelter. But I know I can look back and say, I did everything according to the book. I did everything according to law. I looked at, the Mark 14 intercept that was linked to presidential command and control, that was linked to Scud. And we were in the business of stopping the Scud launches. We had an emergency going on where Israel was threatening to come in the war if we didn't stop the Scud launches. And we were trying to interrupt the Scud decision, chain. And so Mark 14 communications linked there. Check. And then we asked the question, is there evidence of people coming in? No, none. There was no evidence that this was being used as a bomb shelter. Yes, back in the Gulf War, in Iran-Iraq war, it was. But now it looks like it had been converted to a command and control center. And we had all the reason to believe it was. We did the checks and balances, and we were wrong. And that lives with me forever. We were wrong, but we didn't commit a crime. We obeyed the law of war. We did everything we were required by the law of war. And unfortunately, tragically, we slaughtered a lot of people. And I look in the mirror every day, but the guy looking back says, you did your job. It's tragic. This is why I'm so against war, because I did my job, but we killed those people. And so you reflect on that. We're going to have to hit pause for just a second because I got somebody at the door here. Hopefully not the FBI.
Yeah. It's tragic what has happened. I think the society in Iran is totally, they're so sad about what has happened in this city called Minab, and there's still people, in the community talking to each other what has happened. Many of these people are somehow disappeared from, as Scott pointed out, they're turned into ash and they're not anymore there. They don't know how to bury them. Yeah, that's a tragedy. But we're gonna come to the current situation of the war in a minute when Scott gets back. And we're going to talk about what is happening right now in terms of the battleground and the balance of forces right now, because from what we've seen so far, it seems that the air defense system of Israel is not working properly. So they have a lot of missiles getting in, not from Iran, but also from Hezbollah as well. And let's see what is the understanding of Scott Ritter is of the current situation with the war. And we had a report, from General Kane. He mentions the current situation and what are the objectives of the United States today. And here is what, Scott's back.
Keep going with General Kane. Go ahead. I'll listen.
Yeah.
Here's what he said.
General Kane, Scott, reported on the main objectives of the United States right now. And here is what he said, Scott.
The joint force remains focused on 3 military objectives. Continue to destroy Iranian ballistic missiles and drone capability. Second, we continue to strike the Iranian Navy and their capabilities in order to do things like sustain movement through the Straits of Hormuz. And third, we continue to start working on and going deeper into Iran's military and industrial base in order to prevent the regime from being able to attack Americans, our interests, and our partners for years to come.
Meanwhile, Iran attempting to lay down.
Yeah. Scott, what is your understanding of these 3 objectives mentioned by General Kane?
First of all, I think these objectives are movable. What I mean by that is that they reflect the changing nature of this war that he's reprioritizing. The first one was suppress the missiles. Well, we failed. I mean, I wish I was the intelligence officer. General, objective 1, failed across the board, boss. We miscalculated. The Iranians are launching cruise missiles and missiles on a daily basis. We have not successfully interdicted their launch capacity. The intelligence you had related to the percentage of launchers destroyed was flushed last night when the Iranians hit Israel with the largest number of missiles since the start of this conflict, proving that they have retained sufficient ballistic missile launch capacity in excess of what we currently assess. That means we've got it all wrong, General. That means we need to go back and do a baseline reevaluation, because clearly we don't understand the enemy that we're fighting. We think we're striking targets. I gave this is the briefing I gave to General Schwarzkopf during the Gulf War, when we had 19 mobile launchers, and by a week and a half in, we had killed 64. And I said, boss, we ain't doing what we think we're doing, because we claim to kill 64. There's only 19. And basic math would dictate that there's about 45 things. Even if we killed all 19, there's 45 things that we claim to be mobile launchers that aren't. We have to ask ourselves what they are and why we misidentified. Plus, we aren't killing any of the launchers because they continue to launch missiles at a very high rate of fire. So we've done it all wrong. And I got fired for that. So maybe these intelligence officers don't want to get fired, but that's your job, guys. Your job isn't to sit there and blow smoke up General Kane's ass. Your job is to tell General Kane the hard truth. The hard truth is we're failing. We're not accomplishing the mission. We need to reevaluate. And if we continue to drop bombs on target using the existing intelligence, we're just going to continue to fail. And so we're going to basically rob America of its capacity to wage war by expending munitions, putting lives at risk, and we're not going to achieve the outcome you say you want to achieve. So maybe it's time to hit a pause, stop, and take that. Because the problem is, as you continue the fight continues automatically. I talked about reattack. When you start bombing, you have battle damage assessment. You're looking at effects. You look to reattack. You want to get the objective hit on every target hit, and then that target is part of a campaign plan. As you move from one target set, you move to the next target. So it's on full automatic. And once people get into the rhythm of war, been there, done that, got the T-shirt. You get in the rhythm of war. It's hard to hit stop, because everything's planned. Strike packages aren't done instantaneously. I'm planning today for the mission tomorrow. I'm planning, munitions. I got to get them ordered up. Boom. I got to get fuel ordered up. I got to find out which pilots are going to be assigned to which aircraft. Is that aircraft going to be up? Does it have to go down for maintenance? Do I have a replacement aircraft? The whole thing, the way war works, it's on automatic. And so it just keeps feeding itself. And if you get the machine doing the wrong thing up front, it will never self-correct. The machine can't self-correct unless you pause. You have to hit stop, reset, go. And that's what needs to be done with the missile thing, if it's even possible. I think that we have bad intelligence. I think we don't understand what the Iranians are doing. And I think we're just blowing up targets that have nothing to do whatsoever with missiles. Because if they had something to do with missiles, I think we'd be seeing a greater impact on that. So failure on the missile thing. The Navy. Navy was never part of this equation. Nobody thought the Iranian Navy was it. If you thought the Iranian Navy was what's going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, you're dumber than dirt. The Iranian Navy was never going to be involved in the shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, because the Iranian Navy understands that the United States Navy would sink it every day of the week. The Iranians never thought that they were going to sit there and match the U.S. capability. They could flex against Gulf Arab states. They had a Navy of regional capacity, but they could never flex against the United States. So in a major shooting war with the United States, the Iranian Navy was always going to be sunk. And it has no impact. So he sat there and he said, we're destroying the Navy so we can keep the Strait of Hormuz open. Haven't kept the Strait of Hormuz open. So again, fundamental flaw in the way you're thinking, plus all the munitions you've wasted on sinking Iranian ships that have no impact on this whatsoever. You've failed, General Kane. That's 2 out of 2 failure. And the third one now he's going to expand the war into the industrial. We're 12 days in, and you're going to expand into industrial. General Kane, let me tell you, again, just studying war, the way it works, none of the facilities you're going to strike will have anything in them. Even if you had struck them on day one, most of those facilities wouldn't have anything in them, because we had been telegraphing the potential of conflict for some time now, and we'd actually said the places that we were interested in. Just like the Iranians evacuated all of the centrifuges of value, or at least replicated them, kept a safety stock in hide sites, so that even if we blew up Natanz and blew up Firdos, they still have several 164 cascade centrifuge cascades of high capacity, IR-8s, IR-6s. They're out there buried somewhere with a power supply, able to do their work. They were evacuated. you want to blow up the missile production facility. So right now you got a targeteer. Let's call him Scott Ritter. And old Scott Ritter's going to pull up and say, "Hey, this is Iranian ballistic missile or solid rocket propellant plant 16 Alpha. The following facilities are here. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm going to show you. And then we've looked at it. And if you want to, this is this. You're going to have to use this munition to collapse this. This one, all you have to do is this. Boom, 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 boom. And we're going to put munitions on that. But the mixer that's in that facility ain't there anymore. That's a high value mixer. The Iranians aren't going to keep it there and say blow it up. Everything around it is concrete. So all you do is pour new concrete. But the mixer, it's gone. It's in a facility. Sometime around 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, the Iranians started digging evacuation sites into mountains. Using the same technology, boring technology that they use to help Hezbollah dig underground in Lebanon, the North Koreans use. They use the same technology, and they've been boring out mountains. That's what Firdos is, by the way. Firdos was an evacuation site that was converted to be an enrichment facility. That's all. It existed before. They didn't dig it out, especially for centrifuges. It already existed. It's an evacuation site. There are hundreds of evacuation sites throughout Iran that we don't know anything about. We might think we know where some are, and if we spent the time on it, we could locate it. That's what I would used to do, sitting there looking at roads. I mean, it's hard work, Nima, doing intelligence. It really is, because you got to sit there and you got to try not to fall asleep. But in the old days, you just get on the light table and you just start scrolling through roads, back up. How come they're building a little road off here? Let's follow that road. Where's it going? What do they got here? They got a camp. They got bulldozers here. What are they doing here? What are they building there? That road's expanding. Now there's big excavators coming in. There's mixers coming in. They're pouring concrete inside. There's a hole there. I just found an evacuation site. Target it down and monitor it. If somebody was doing that, you could find evacuation sites because nothing happens in a vacuum. Holes don't appear in mountains out of nowhere. But if you're not looking for it, if you don't have people actively doing this, and people are curious because, I'm looking main road. Nope, bridge. Nope, done. They don't look at that little road going off. So, but if you do that, this is how we found all this stuff in Iraq, because this is what I used to do too. Spend a lot of time just looking through U2 imagery. And then you go, what happened here? What do you got here? Boom, there it is. So there's hundreds of these sites. We may know some of them. We may be bombing some of them. But this is why when you hide stuff, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. You split it up. So you have, survivability. All the targets that General Kane's talking about going to bomb now are empty. So we're going to go in and we're going to blow up concrete. That's it. We're going to put American lives at risk. We're going to kill a lot of innocent civilians because, again, we're blowing up targets we don't understand. We proved that on day one because we bombed a hospital and a school in Manab. 50% of the targets we struck in Manab were war crimes. There were 4 targets to be struck. 2 of them were prohibited by law, a hospital and a school. 50%. Imagine now taking that ratio to what we're doing in all of Iran. We're killing a lot of innocent people because they say, the war crime we committed in Manab is being repeated on a daily basis. And again, there's no defense for this. There's no defense whatsoever. Military professionals should be saying, time out, we need to go through. And you have to do that right now. You have to say, why are we bombing this target? What are we trying to accomplish? And if you're not doing that, you're failed and you are committing a crime, literally committing a crime. You have a responsibility under the Constitution not to obey an unlawful order. And at this point in time, you all should be put on notice that your targeting is insufficient, that they have removed the checks and balances that are required by law to do distinguishment, to distinguish between military and civilian. That's been removed. Therefore, you can't assume that that's been done. Therefore, you must not strike the target. And if you continue to bomb, anybody bombing after this, you're committing a war crime, a potential war crime. So, this is the fact. So Kane listed 3 objectives. All 3 are failures. 2 have already failed. The 3rd one is doomed to fail because I'm just telling you right now, we learned this from Iraq. I mean, again, it was one of the more stunning things to be, I was unique in that I was a guy who participated in the Strategic Air Campaign. And was knowledgeable of all. I was the guy who did the Scud battle damage assessment, not just for mobile rockets, but I'm the guy that looked at every facility related to Scud in Taji and Taj al-Mariq and everywhere, every single one of them. I monitored during the war, and I watched the destruction that took place. I also had a whole bunch of other target sets that I monitored as well. And then I get to go to Iraq as a weapons inspector. And I remember how stunning it was. We stopped bombing them in February, and in December, I'm there. So, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. 10 months later, after the war stopped, after we dropped all these buildings, I'm in Baghdad inspecting these buildings. And you're going to these facilities, and there's a lot of destruction. But then as you keep going on, you're like, where's the material? We blew up Taj al-Mariq, which is a solid rocket propellant plant. This is what I'm trying to tell. General Kane, I hope you're listening to me, because you might want to study this, because you're getting ready to bomb the equivalent of the Iranian equivalent of this. And we blew up a lot of stuff. But by 1992, we were going back in, 1993, going back in. And we noticed that all the places that we bombed were rebuilt. And all the mixer facilities that we thought we were destroying were back in, installed, operating. We didn't accomplish anything. We blew up facilities, but they're all back there. They're building. We got to Taji. They blew everything up in Taji. Next thing we know, the roofs are repaired, swept out, and all the production equipment from the Nasser plant is back in there. They're doing forging, bending metal, the whole thing. We didn't destroy anything. We literally destroyed nothing. It's the way it is. Same thing with the nuclear side. It was all later evacuated, buried, blown up by the Iraqis, but we didn't destroy anything. It was all evacuated. That was the Iraqis. The Iranians are watching this, learning from that. I can guarantee you right now with 100% certainty that the totality of Iran's infrastructure of value, the production equipment, has been evacuated to a hide site. So if you're going to go bomb a facility, go ahead and bomb it. Why not? Blow up a building. Yay. And it's good graphics. You'll be up there doing the mouth breathers that populate X and Telegram and everything. We're blowing things up. Isn't it fun? And they can sit there and get off on that. They're little war porn. But it's not doing anything. We're just blowing things up, and we're wasting munitions. And we've already blown through billions of dollars in munitions. We're running out of certain kind of ammunition. But if Kane wants to go do that, then he's a failure as a leader, because this is where a real leader would stand up and say, Mr. President, we're blowing up empty buildings. Time to hit stop, and let's go back and find hide sites, because that's what this phase of the campaign needs to be about. Hide sites. Find hide sites and start taking them out one by one by one. And that's how we win this war. Blow up hide sites, blow up critical infrastructure. But no, we're going to go blow up empty buildings. Yay. The stupidity of this is mind-boggling. It's the same thing with the Navy. We're sinking ships. So what? When this war's over, Iran will buy new ships. But they've shut the Strait of Hormuz. We can't stop them from doing that. Can't stop them at all. If we try to sail our ships through, we'll lose our ships. They may or may not be mining right now. I don't know. The reports are very nebulous about that, but it doesn't matter. No ships going through without getting attacked unless the Iranians want it to go through. But they don't have a navy. They didn't need a navy. You're bombing the wrong thing. This is what happens when you have stupid people play war, because you really needed smart people to be looking at the totality of the Iranian capability and look at what we wanted to achieve. You and I had this conversation. I'm telling you right now that had I been in charge of the missile suppression campaign, we would have been a hell of a lot more effective than we are here. Because you have to have somebody who knows missiles and has to understand then how the Iranians have adapted. I'll give you an example. We, when we went to war against Iraq, we started using Soviet standards on how long it takes to get a missile launch. So we would sit there and say, all right, if we're going to fly an F-15E combat air patrol over Western Iraq, we know that they have to move out, they have to fuel at the place, so there's going to be fuel trucks coming in, then they have to raise the missile, and we're going to be photographing it, and we'll come in and we'll blow it up. And after they launch, it's going to take some time now to lower it down and for them to get out. What we didn't realize is that the Iraqis, well, I say we didn't realize, some of us did, because some of us studied the Iran-Iraq war and said, wait a minute, they're taking the Al Hussein and they're surging it forward, they're firing it, and they're pulling it back. That means they're not fueling at the point of launch. That means they have a facility back here where they're fueling from. So maybe the Iraqi tactics are different, and we might want to factor that in. Some of us did that and tried to convince people that we were fighting the wrong war, but it didn't work. They instead said, no, they're fueling. So now the Iraqis have they're fueling their missiles at a place, Ramadi for out west, Abu Ghraib, Kut for there, go down to near Basra, they were doing a place. And then these missiles would be loaded on the launchers and then driven to the launch site. They'd raise it, they'd fire it, and then they had rapid evacuation. Boom, they're out. 5 minutes they're removed from the site. So if we're there 8 minutes away from a launch site, they launch, we're told to come in, roll in, they're gone in 5 minutes. They're at another hide site with IR protection cover over. We can't see the heat. They're cool, and we're looking. We got nothing. We already fought that war, so we need to sit there and literally somebody had to sit there and talk about each system, how it operates, what its range is. Look at the physical characteristics, and then play games like how quickly, because the Iranians aren't going to do peacetime stuff. This is combat, rapid. How do they operate rapidly? Where are are we looking at all of the palm groves to look for missile dispense where they hide their missiles? We didn't do that. We sat there and we said, they're going to bring their missiles out. They're going to salvo and launch. We're going to come in. We're going to do this, that, and the other thing. And so we're wasting a lot of time and effort blowing things up that aren't, plus other decoys. I mean, the Iraqis were very good. They had a small little decoy unit, and they had 3 fixed decoy sites with realistic looking decoy launchers. And we're bombing them. It's just basically saying, here, come here and bomb. And while you're bombing here, the Iraqis also did things like, okay, we're going to go ahead and run a convoy down here, a misdirection. And so they put decoys here, run a convoy here, and we're bombing here, interdicting the convoy here, and over here, out of this palm grove, 2 launchers come up and fire. And then they disappear. We can't react. Their whole campaign was run through that kind of deception. The Iranians have learned from this. They have decoys. They have inflatable decoys. They have realistic looking decoys. They're out there. If you're, and I don't know, maybe they've been clever enough to put barrels of fuel in there so you get a nice secondary explosion. I would if I were the Iranians, but they're out there putting these things up. If a missile is in a launch position and it hasn't launched within 5 minutes of that launch position, it's a decoy. Okay, guys, it's a decoy. And so they're just suckering us. We're sitting there bombing stuff, bragging how much we're blowing stuff up, and yet they're launching. I'm not saying they're not suffering casualties. I think they are, because the scope and scale, we're only dealing with 19 mobile launchers with the Iraqis. It was tougher to target. Here, you're dealing with a lot more. I think we're getting some. Some of that imagery looked like they were trying to hide it and get it. But again, I mean, I look at that imagery and I'm like, are they that stupid? I mean, again, the Iranians are professionals. So why would you pick a hide site under a culvert that has your ass hanging out of it? If you got the missile ass hanging out, you know the enemy can see it, which tells me you want the enemy to see it. So they put a decoy under the culvert with its ass hanging out, and we go, gotcha, blow it up, put the video on there. People are doing their little dance and all that, and all we got a decoy. These guys are professionals. The missile guys are professionals. They have pre-scouted every single one of their things. When they go to do a launch, they have all their, because the Iraqis did this and the Iranians are every bit as professional as them. They had every one of their hide sites picked out. That's how come after they launched, they were able to get back to Ramadi and never be detected, because they were here, they monitored aircraft, shot over here, monitored aircraft, shot over there, and they just boom, 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 back. We never detected them. The Iranians are that good too. So I can't imagine an Iranian guy going, all right, let's fire and stick it under a culvert and leave our ass hanging out. No, they've already measured all. They're like, we got to get in. We got to do the heat signature. We're going under a culvert. We're going to drop a tarp down. The tarp is going to shield the heat, because after you launch a missile, you're going to be reflective heat. Drop the tarp down. You come in with infrared. You can't see it. We can do artificial things like do a heat generator over here to generate heat to attract. That's how good these guys are. These guys are really, really, really good. And we don't give them any credit for being really, really, really good. If you're going to beat the Iranians at this missile game, you got to start thinking like an Iranian missileer. And we don't. We disrespect these people all over the place. we're the greatest military in the world. We're the most lethal killing machine in the world. When we put aircraft over target, we dominate. Well, you can't dominate simply by saying you dominate. You actually have to go out and dominate. And guess what? The fact that all three of General Kane's objective criteria have not been achieved means we're not dominating anything. We're only fooling ourselves.
How, Scott, how do you evaluate the Iranian objectives? What are they looking for, and how successful they were so far?
Well, the first objective is survival. The Iranians know that this is a war of existential proportions. So that means that you can't pin all your hopes on an individual because people die. You have to pin your hopes on an institution, on institutions, on laws, etc. The constitutional republic, the Constitution. Iran is designed to function as a constitutional republic, and it has passed the test. Flying colors. The supreme leader was killed on day one, and they have successfully replaced him constitutionally. And in the process, he was turned into a martyr, and the Iranian nation is rallying around the Islamic Republic like they've never done before. So they've been very successful in terms of the survival aspect. That's political survival, but now you have to have military survival. And the Iranians have for some time now. I originally thought it was 12 autonomous military districts, or somebody's talking about 32. So maybe they even broke it down even more. I don't know. 32 would be great because that means it's more difficult for us to take it out. You can kill 12 places, but 32, that's a different targeting problem. But they have built this system that's designed to function autonomously. So every one of these military districts doesn't need somebody in Tehran telling them what to do. When the war started, they unplugged and they are running their war plan. Now, the central people might be sitting there trying to direct and redirect and all that kind of stuff if they can stop. But if they don't, they just don't stop. They keep going. So the Iranians will never stop putting pressure on the enemy, ever. No matter what we do, they will continue to go. That's military survivability, keep the pressure against the enemy. And then war is an extension of politics by other means. So you have to ask yourself, why are the Iranians doing what they're doing? Well, I think they have several political objectives, but the big one is to drive the United States out of the Middle East and to defeat Israel to the point that Israel will never again seek to flex its muscles the way they are, to humiliate Israel to the point that Israel stops being an irresponsible power. So you have to have the resources necessary to sustain the fight against Israel. And it looks like they've done that. They've been successful. And you have to have targeting of Israel to know where the pain points are. And they're doing that. They're starting to hit all the important targets. And now permanent pain is about to be inflicted on Israel. You can shut out the lights for one night. What happens when you shut out the lights forever? And we may be headed in that direction. For the United States, you have to destroy. We have these bases, but why are the bases there? Many of the bases there are to collect intelligence on Iran and to facilitate missile defense and facilitate military operations. You do that through radars that collect data, and you do that through satellite relays that communicate data. And they've destroyed that infrastructure. It's gone. Now they're in the process of doing even more damage. But again, with the Iranians, I think they understand. People are like, well, they haven't done that much damage to the base. If you blow up a barracks facility, what have you accomplished? Nothing. I can rebuild a barracks facility. But if you blow up a $1.1 billion unique radar system, you can't replace that. So the Iranians are blowing up critical infrastructure. The base may look intact, and for all the mouth breathers out there going, they haven't really done that much damage, they've neutered the base. It's useless. I mean, if you get a giant stallion, he won the triple derby. I'm going to make a lot of money. The stallion's going to mate with the mares, and then you neuter them. Your stallion's no longer a stallion. It's just a horse, no balls. Well, the American stallion is supposed to be out there mating in the Persian Gulf, but the Iranians have cut the balls off. So it's just a horse. And that's stage one, because it's going to be very expensive for us to move back in. But two, you have to create the political environment for the region not to want the United States to come back. And so you have to make sure that there's a price paid for collusion with the Americans, and that price is being paid. And you're starting to see people in the Gulf Arab states question why they have this relationship with the United States. There's no protection coming for that. We're being attacked. And so I think the political objective here is in the process of being accomplished for them. Punishment of Israel is ongoing. Israel hasn't been fatally hit yet, but they're moving in that direction. There's nothing. Israelis are defenseless at this point. They simply can't defend themselves. So, how much more damage can they take before you cross over that political threshold where it becomes politically unviable? At some point in time, you destroy desalination, you destroy electricity, you make life in Israel unlivable, and the people are going to flee. And when the people flee, when Israel depopulates, that's the end of Israel. And I think the Iranians are moving in that direction. Unlike the American objectives, the Iranians are actually moving towards accomplishing their tasks. And then the other one is, how do you make the United States quit? You're not going to defeat America militarily. You're not. We're going to blow up targets inside Iran forever. The only way you defeat America is to make us politically quit the fight. You're not going to bring military harm to us. So with all due respect, losing 8 soldiers, it's tragic for the families. So what? When we went to war in Desert Storm, we brought, we brought 10,000 body bags and we ordered another 60,000. We didn't use them, but we were ready because there's a war. Okay. And you're going to lose guys in war. So the U.S. military can take a punch, and Iran hasn't delivered a punch to the soldiers. The human cost, it's trivial. 140 wounded, 8 dead, nothing, 0. We can remember World War II. We're going to lose 5,000 Marines on day 1 taking Iwo Jima. We're going to lose 5,000 guys going across D-Day. We could take casualties. That's not how you beat America. You beat America here at home. When the American people lose the will to fight. Remember, in World War II, a lot of people don't realize, an interesting movie, Flags of Our Father. James Bradley wrote the book and they did the movie. They're talking about war bonds, and there's an important speech given by the Secretary of the Navy to the Marines. He said, we're running out of money. The American people don't want to fight this war anymore. They're tired of it. We won in Europe. They're done. They think it's over. And they don't want this thing to continue. And we're running out of money. If we run out of money, that's the end of the war. We have to continue to raise money, war bonds. And your job is to get the American people to want to give money to keep this war going. Your job is to convince American people this war is worth fighting. A lot of people don't realize that, how exhausted the American public was about World War II and how victory in Europe actually undermined the potential of victory in Japan, which is another reason why we dropped atomic bombs. Because the idea of a long drawn-out campaign in Japan, the American public just weren't going to buy that. That was World War II, where the Japanese bombed us at Pearl Harbor, and we had every reason to keep going. The American public here is largely immune to this. We're ignorant as the day is long. We don't understand war. We don't understand what we've done. Most Americans aren't crying about 186 dead Iranian children because they just don't care. We've dehumanized the Iranians psychologically. They're not human beings. They're brown people. They're supporters. They're Muslims. We can use all derogatory terms. We forget they're the most cultured people in the world, thousands of years of culture and history. And they're as human as everybody else, more so because I've met them and they're just wonderful people. But we've built a shield for us. So for the American people to try and play the humanity card, saying what you're doing is wrong, you're going to get some people say, yes, you're right. The majority of Americans don't care. They're going to buy into the war porn. They're going to look at the blow up stuff and say, 47 years in the making. Those Iranian bastards have been getting us for 47 years. We got to do something. And they sent the missile in that children's school. President said so. It wasn't us. They did it. I mean, this is stupidity, the collective here. The American collective is written off. But what you get them is when these mouth breeders, as they watch the war porn, okay, I got to go buy gas. And then they go to the gas station and they go, wait a minute. Last week it was $3.11. Today it's at $3.58. What's going on here? I don't have that much money. Then they go to the store to buy their food and they don't realize that the price of diesel has gone through the roof. So it costs a lot of money for the truckers to come in. And so the people that put the food in the stoves raise the price. Last week, it only cost me, I could buy a full week's worth of grocery for $250. It's now $375. I don't have $125 a week extra to do all this. What's going on here? And suddenly the light goes off. It's not about morality. It's not about the law. It's not about anything. It's not constitution. It's now there's a personal impact. And now they realize there's an economic price to be paid. What the hell was Trump thinking? There's the question you should have been asking from day one. And that's how we're going to lose the war. And Iran is right now creating the conditions to do that. Iran has studied us more than we have studied them. Iran knows the enemy far better than we know our enemy. I don't believe the Iranians are our enemy. And if we're going to treat them like one, we should at least respect them enough to learn about them and study them. If we're going to go to war against them, at least try to win. But we're not. We're just blowing things up. We've done our best to lose this war. And if the Iranians can keep the Strait of Hormuz shut down and keep the actions sustained against Israel and keep absorbing American damage. They're going to win this war because the war won't be won on the battlefield. The war will be won here in the home front. When the American people realize there's an economic cost to be paid for this war and the political pressure is put on Washington, D.C. to stop this war.
Israel was trying so hard to bring Azerbaijan to the fight. They thought that Azerbaijan would bring some sort of, leverage for them, and if they get involved in the conflict. But it seems that totally failed because of the connection they had with Russia, with Iran, and with what we've seen so far. But Lindsey Graham is desperately begging or threatening Saudi Arabia to get involved in the conflict. What is in his mind that Saudi Arabia can bring to the conflict for him?
I think, first of all, for Lindsey Graham, a lot of perception creates its own reality. So the more Lindsey Graham can sell to the American people that there's a united front against Iran, the more he can get up there and cheerlead. But if he's going to sit there and cheerlead about the nobility of this cause, and suddenly look around and Gulf Arab states who we called our critical allies are saying, no, we're hands off on this one. The American people aren't start asking questions. Wait a minute. If Iran's such a threat, why isn't Saudi Arabia on board? Maybe they know something because they live next door to them, and they're not worried like you are. And they start asking questions, and these are things that. So I think a lot of it is just the perception that Graham wants to create the perception of broad-based support for what America's doing. And the more nations start to peel off, the more isolated we become, and the more foolish this foolish man already looks. The second thing it's desperation at this point in time, because you can be the biggest cheerleader in the world. I mean, I love my football teams, and I can cheer. First quarter, go boys, go! They're losing, but there's still a chance. There's 3 quarters left. Second quarter, come on, man, you can do it. They're losing at halftime. That's at halftime. There's still like half a game left. Third quarter, it's miraculous. We got 15 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And I'll keep cheering up until the point it's over. But at some point in time, you could be cheering and the crowd's going, Scott, it's 47-0. There's 3 minutes left in the game. We're not going to win. and Lindsey Graham's looking at the scoreboard right now, and it's looking pretty grim. I just told you, he is an ignorant man. He's an immoral man, but he's not a stupid man. And he's looking at the scoreboard, and he's recognizing that the clock's running out on this game, and we haven't scored any points. We thought we scored a point with Khomeini, but that turned out to be actually a safety, and we lost 2 points because we hurt ourselves more by killing them than we did by had we left them alive, we'd be better off than where we are now. But I just told you we're not suppressing missiles. We're not destroying the Navy is meaningless, and we're only now getting ready to blow up buildings that are empty. And meanwhile, Iran is surviving. Not only surviving, but they're punishing. So now ask yourself, you're Azerbaijan. Now, if this was the conversation was you want to join in, and Azerbaijan looks across the border, and the supreme leader's dead. The IRGC is fractured. People are in the streets shouting "Death to Khomeini," and the military is fracturing. They're not being very effective. Israel is shooting everything down and looking pretty good. The Gulf Arab states are united. I go, hell yeah! Let me sign up for that one. I'm in. Zangezur corridor, baby. Let's do this thing. But we come to and say, Azerbaijan, you want to come in? That Zangezur corridor. Remember, J.D. Vance was here last month. He promised you all this stuff. Yeah, but they're really pissed off, and they're unified, and they're going to beat us up. They're going to come after us. I got a small little oil field over here outside of Baku. They're going to blow that up, and then I have no more money. I'm not too thrilled about this anymore. No, I'm not signing up for this one. That's why Azerbaijan dropped out, because Iran is not defeated. Iran has the ability to punish Azerbaijan. But you also notice the Israelis, because it is the Israelis attacking Iranian infrastructure with drones and such, because the Israelis are desperate to get Azerbaijan into this conflict. But they're not. And at some point in time, the pipeline that pumps, was it 40% of Israel's oil, or it's a good
It's
number.
45. Yeah.
Well, there you go. There's an extra 5%. But the point is, at some point in time, that's going to come into play. And the thing is, Iran's job right now is to make life unlivable in Israel. They're not going to do the Holocaust, 6 million dead and all that stuff. First of all, there's 9 million. Their job isn't, again, the Iranians, it amazes me. I mean, to tell you the truth, because there's people out there going, you know, we've killed 1,200 Iranians, and in Israel, we've suffered 13 dead. Who's winning this war? Not you, Israel. The Iranians aren't trying to kill people. This is the crazy thing about this. We're at this stage where the Iranians know how to kill people. They know we're there. The Americans are all stuffed into the barracks facilities. The Iranians aren't killing the soldiers. They could. But look what they're hitting. Radars. They're hitting critical infrastructure. Never once have they gone after, a big barracks facility, because they're. Thank God I'm not an Iranian commander, because I'm a bloodthirsty son of a bitch, and I'd be like, kill as many as possible. But these are moral people, and they're like, no, we can achieve our strategic objectives and not kill people. And they're not killing Israelis. They're not deliberately targeting Israel, no matter how much the Israelis cry about that. The Iranian targets are very specific targets to achieve very specific strategic results. The same thing with the United States. And the Iranians are smart on this one, because, you kill too many Americans and we get pissed off. And you don't want America pissed off. You want America angry about prices of gas. That's where America's mind needs to be, gas prices. But 500 dead Americans, I'll pay as much as the pump is necessary to kill all those Iranians. Kill them all. You want to come after us? You want to kill my son, kill my brother, kill my this, kill you all. And then suddenly the war continues. The Iranians are smart. Don't look for maximum casualties. You can talk it up. I know the Iranians are like, we could do this, we could do that. They know they're not doing this, because they know, I believe they understand, if they wanted to kill Americans, they know how to kill Americans. They're not, deliberately not. And so they're keeping the casualty count low, because in America today, no one's saying, I mean, you got people pull up, 8 guys. Guys, 8's nothing. 26 Americans, servicemen, commit suicide a day. So we don't care about them. Why we care about 8 who die in the course of 12 days? We don't. I mean, we dignified return of remains and all that bullshit. How many people have gone to visit the families? The neighbors have, but how many Americans are like going to go visit them, hold the hand of the mother and the sister and the brother and all that? You're not. You're just all liars. You don't care about these guys. But you do care about price of gas, and you care about the price of food, and you care about the cost of living. And that's how you break America. You don't break America by killing Americans. You break America by killing their bank accounts. The same thing with Israel. You don't defeat Israel by killing Israelis. Look, on the battlefield, it's different. Hezbollah, they're kicking some serious Israeli ass. And God bless them for doing that. But because they're defending their own soil, just so people understand, it's not Hezbollah that invaded Israel. Although there's rumors about taking an Israeli village in northern Israel, I don't know the truth of that. But we know that Israel's in southern Lebanon, and they're just getting slaughtered. I thought Hezbollah was defeated. No, never have been, and never will be. But the point is, the Iranians are just playing a very smart game. I mean, my God, the fact that they're playing this smart game after all of the justification we've given them to be vengeful. I mean, you killed the supreme leader. That alone cries out for blood. 186 children slaughtered and 1,200 other civilians killed. I mean, one would think they'd be just screaming for the blood of Americans, screaming for the blood of Israelis. And yet, every day, the targeting is very specific. It's very strategically oriented to achieve the strategic result. You defeat Israel not by killing the Israelis. You defeat Israel by making life unlivable for the Israelis. And then they leave. You want to destroy the Zionist state? Destroy confidence in the population to live in the Zionist state. When the Israeli people wake up one morning and go, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going back home, because they're all from somewhere else. And they start going back home. Then Israel doesn't exist anymore. And you get the population down to a certain level, and suddenly the single state solution becomes the only state solution, because there's no longer justification to keep a Jewish only state. Israel will become Palestine, and that's the direction the Iranians want to go. They're not out to kill Jews, with all due respect to all the people out there accusing the Iranians. It's not their thing. That's not who they are. I mean, that's the one thing I've learned. I mean, we know that Iranian justice can be tough. I mean, Wouldn't want to be a homosexual in Iran, okay? And I wouldn't want to be a drug dealer in Iran. I wouldn't want to be an adulterer in Iran. I wouldn't want to be any of the things that Islamic law has harshly judged people for. If I could give any advice to the Iranians, if they ever take it, I'd say stop hanging people. Stop it. It's not a good look. If people commit a crime, rehabilitate them in prison. Stop this harsh thing, because it's just a bad look abroad. Because I've met you guys, and you're actually decent human beings. You really are decent human beings who care about human life, and the humanitarian stuff that goes on inside Iran is commendable. They have a PR problem, but the thing is, the true nature of this regime, because if they were the hanging judges that everybody accused them of, then they'd be screaming for blood, American blood, Israeli blood. They'd be trying to kill as many people as possible. It's not what they're doing. Very deliberate targeting. And you know this because of the accuracy of what they're hitting. They're hitting what they're aiming at. So if they wanted to hit a barracks, and they've got good intelligence, they know where the American soldiers are congregated, and they have weapons that can penetrate that bunker, and they're not hitting that bunker. Why? Because they don't want to kill Americans. They have every right to, but they don't want to. Because you kill Americans, you enrage the American population, and you make it very difficult. You make it harder to break the American population. Keep the death count low, maximize economic pain, and this country will fold like a house of cards, and we're already headed in that direction. So I think the Iranians are winning strategically across the board. There's not one place I can say that they're underperforming. I mean, they're being hit really hard by the two most powerful air forces in the world. Let's not diminish what Israel and the United States are capable of doing in terms of providing damage. But the targeting, that's the key. You can have the biggest punch in the world, but if you're not hitting the right thing, you're not going to win. And right now, the Iranians have made sure that we're hitting the wrong thing. Like I said, with ballistic missiles, I think they've played a very effective decoy game. And they've also done a good job in disguising where their missiles really are. And we haven't solved that problem. I don't know if we will. Navy, who cares? Because they're shutting the Strait of Hormuz. It just doesn't matter about the Navy. Tragic for the life. They shouldn't have sunk that ship. But the people that are bragging about how we're winning this war because there is no more Navy, that's just not a factor. And now we're going to move into the next phase and take out industrial facilities. Concrete gets poured. Those facilities will be rebuilt. You're not blowing up the expensive items that were inside. They've been moved. So you're hitting the wrong targets. So I think that we're losing this war, and we're going to lose this war. And the Iranians are on track to win this war. As long as if things stay the way they are right now, we will not accomplish any of our objectives, and the Iranians will accomplish both of their primary objectives, which is evicting the United States from the Middle East and the destruction of greater Israel. Something named Israel will exist and maybe eventually get folded into Palestine. That's a political thing down the road. But if the Iranians can create the conditions where 1/3 of the Israeli population decide they just don't want to play that game anymore and they leave, that's a victory. It's a huge victory for Iran. And they're headed in that direction. And the same thing, they're headed into the direction of breaking the will of the American people to politically sustain this fight.
Thank you so much, Scott, for being with us today. Great pleasure, as always.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, see you soon.
Bye.